the silent battles, the suffering that you're facing behind the scenes, or internally feeling like you're all alone, or like, what's wrong with me? I can't do this. I'm not good enough. This is part of the process, I promise you. So don't you dare settle. What we think is our disadvantage, we wonder, why does this other person have this and I don't? God's like, trust me, you've got to have faith, because what you think is your disadvantage, why I've wired you to be different than everyone else, is what's going to make you have that superpower. I'm going to talk to you about the silent battles that take place behind the scenes, like what happens in the dark, what you have to endure, the suffering that you have to go through to truly achieve that higher level of your purpose, that success, that high performance mindset. I'm going to talk to you about the silent battles that take place behind the scenes, like what happens in the dark, what you have to endure, the suffering that you have to go through to truly achieve that higher level of your purpose, that success, that high performance mindset. There's so much that it takes place that goes on behind the scenes that people don't openly talk about. And this is the grit. This is where we're going to get into the experience versus the knowledge. I'm going to start with a parable of the bamboo and the fern. A farmer planted both a fern and a bamboo seed in the same soil. The fern sprouted almost immediately, its bright green leaves filling the garden. The bamboo, nothing. The farmer watered and cared for both every single day. By the 5th year, he was tired, but still, he continued to water it. And then, late in the 6th year, the bamboo finally emerged. Now, here's what's crazy. After 6 years of not seeing it grow, of it being under the ground in the dark, the bamboo finally emerges and grows over 90 feet tall in just 6 weeks. It's so crazy. So for 5 years, it was growing roots. No one could see it. This is what I'm talking about, like the dark place, the behind the scenes. The fern immediately had the beauty, but the bamboo was growing behind the scenes into its bigger destiny. And this is what I'm going to be talking about. I have an amazing thing to share with you too. This is actually really cool. It's the Action Bible. And my 10-year-old son, I was reading to him the story of David and Goliath before bed the other night. And there was some parts in this that I totally forgot. That is such a perfect example of the in-between. Like, we all know about David killing Goliath, but there's so much more to it beyond that, about the silent battles of building your Goliath-slaying, high-performance mindset. It starts with God gives you this vision, okay? Like, he puts this dream in your heart, this vision, and it's different for all of us. And there's also different levels of our vision. We have different purposes that grow and evolve throughout our life. David, it's like 12 to 15 years old. It doesn't specifically say his age. I'm not a perfect scholar, but it talks about he wasn't ready, old enough to fight in the war yet. He was leading the flock of sheep. They guessed he's around like 12 or 15 years old. Now, this is important because I totally forgot about this part, by the way. So here's from the Action Bible. This is cool. David's out just like leading the sheep and doing what he's supposed to be doing. And they come out to find him and they see this lion's like creeping up on him. And they're like, David doesn't even see this lion. Like the lion's about to kill him. And then all of a sudden, David pulls out his slingshot, boom, hits the lion square in between the eyes and kills it. And they run up and they're like, David, the lion, you killed it. And David's like, yeah, I also had to kill a bear a few days ago. Nothing's going to hurt my father's sheep if I can help it. Protecting his father's sheep. It's just what God does for us, which is just what Jesus does for us. But what I love about this is David was already training behind the scenes in that dark place for the battle that he was going to have with Goliath. Then bring him down And this dude, Samuel, puts an anointing on David out of all the sons, which none of them suspected or wanted. Blesses him, anoints him with oil, said, "The Lord will bless you to be the next king of Israel." David was like 12 to 15 years old when this anointing happens. So this dream gets put in his heart, this vision, okay? Whatever it is you're going after. 22 years later, David's 37 years old, he finally becomes the full king of Israel. There was a time when he was 30 where he become, I think it's like ruler or king of Judah. There's a long process to all this, but not fully the king of Israel. And this is what I'm talking about, like the behind the scenes, the grit, the perseverance, the suffering that you have to go through that no one sees. So he gets this like prophecy. He's not just lifted up and hoisted into king. He goes back to doing what he knows to do, and it's lead the sheep to his sheep. He's tending to his sheep. He's training without knowing it's training, fighting off those bears with a slingshot, the lions. Also, he starts singing these hymns in the heart. He's like with his sheep. He's by himself. He's singing these hymns, writing these hymns, praising God, doing it like with his sheep, keeping himself occupied during it, the behind the scenes, knowing that this is all continually training him for the next level. He's going to be called. This is what it means when people talk about the process. It's so easy to think like he could sit there and dwell and be like, I'm supposed to be king. I don't need to be doing all this and blah, blah, blah. That's not how it works. You've got to keep going through it when no one else sees what's going to happen. What's happening in the dark and like behind the scenes, the suffering. So David is then like, they see that he plays and sings these hymns, and King Saul at the time, who was the king of Israel, is like going through all this mental stuff and can't sleep. And someone's like, I know this dude, David, I saw like singing these hymns out in the sheep. I think he'd be great. Help you. So David comes in, still just a kid, starts singing the hymns and playing the harp for Saul, which actually starts to introduce David to the palace, to like the king's atmosphere. He gets a glimpse of the environment. Sometimes does that happen to us, where we get around just some of that next level of success of what we're wanting to be. You know, say you're wanting to be an NBA player and you happen to go to a game and maybe you get to meet one of your favorite players and you just get a little closer to them and you just kind of see like, whoa, this is sort of what this environment looks like, but you still have no idea what they've had to go through behind the scenes to get to where they've got. And it's hard because you're in those dark places for each new level. Do you battle things externally, like David's killing off the lions, the bears, other things, but also internally? It's the voices, like the doubt. Life is going to life. Like all these other things are going to happen. Your family will get sick, lose loved ones, through in our relationships, in our marriages, like with our kids. Businesses, we have people stab us in the back, screw us out of money. Grew up as humans. Yes, we're human. We make massive mistakes, but grit is what it takes to just keep continually going forward. Okay? One step at a time. 22 years later is when he actually becomes king. But then, okay, so big level for him, for David, what we all know of is he fights and kills Goliath. Looked at as a weakness, this little shepherd is going to come and fight Goliath. And they're like, okay, King Saul's like, here's my armor, here's my sword. And David tries to put it on. It doesn't fit him. It's too heavy for him. I don't know how to fight with this. I'm trained or equipped, which his disadvantage became his advantage. So he goes out there with just his slingshot. But using that slingshot to kill those lions, to kill those bears, So what we think is our disadvantage, we wonder, why does this other person have this and I don't? Trust me, you've got to have faith, because what you think is your disadvantage, why I've wired you to be different than everyone else, is what's going to make you have that superpower, your advantage. David goes out there with a slingshot, boom, hits Goliath in between the eyes, kills. I love this. He takes Goliath's own sword, because he never had a sword, and boom, chops his head off with it. In the scenes, raise him up to victory. He gets like, the prophecy feels like it's starting to become true. They raise him up. David starts like leading Saul's armies into all these other battles. But then guess what? I was reading this. I love this book because it reminded me there's so much between and after he becomes king that just has so many great parallels to success. And this talks about the quote, jealous king at this point. By the way, another shout out to the Action Bible. Awesome for my son. And I'm like, this is awesome for me. So King Saul think, okay, now David's like getting more popular than me, and starts getting jealous. And King Saul also had a prophecy that I think it was Samuel told him, one day they're going to take your kingdom from you. And he started thinking, okay, that it's going to be David. So Saul, who was supposed to be like his mentor, his right-hand man now, need to kill him. Scenes, man. David has to run away, go on exile, back to that dark place. When I was talking about the parable of the bamboo and the fern, growing the roots under the ground, the stuff that no one sees. The exile, he has to run. And this is where a lot of us can give up. And very open in his hymns and stuff. I love the humanity of it, because he writes like questioning, like, God, like, why is this happening to me? Like, he writes, but he opens up to him with the good and the bad. And he's like, help, like, make this better for me. This isn't right. Like, always ends it with, but I love you and I trust you, God, and I have great. And us to bring all this to him. He knows we're human. He created us. Open up to him about everything. What I always see is that David continues to go back to, but I know you're a good God. I know you're a just God, and I'm going to continue on my path forward. So he'll be down like in tears and crying. So now we're going through this. I've been some stuff behind the scenes right now that I can't yet openly talk about, but I will. A really dark place. I'm talking about, I almost didn't even do this show because so much in my head. I have so many other things going on that have just hit me hard. This illness going on with a loved one, going on just in my personal life and with my business. And also know God is continually orchestrating, and these and dreams that he puts in our heart, these different levels of the in-between. And when it feels like, I don't know why I'm going through this, David, I don't know why I have to keep being a shepherd and leading these sheep when I'm supposed to be king. And God's like, no, I'm training you to get even better with a slingshot, so then you can take out Goliath when you need to. At the time, and it takes faith. Then he go on exile, and that leads to a whole other level of David starting to like take on some other leadership. Some people start following him. And this is another process of like building him up and actually preparing him one day. Know this. But when we're in the dark, when we're going through these times of adversity, I've learned in my life, when I look back on it, God used that to equip me and prepare me so that when I got to the next level of my dream, of my success, whatever it may be, I'm trained with that next level of the mindset needed there's another level. Something else I have to tell you, I think that's really important. Just speaking of money, and there's times where people always quote like money is the root of all evil and stuff. And it's like, yeah, that can be true if you worship it. Also, there's so many examples throughout the Bible where they talk about how God has blessed so and so with abundance that will live throughout his generations of wealth through his families, through his ancestors. So there's also blessings of wealth, because I believe not that you worship the money, but you can use it as a tool to live the bigger levels of your purpose, if that's what God calls you to do. The anointing, the bigger the blessing that God puts on you, the higher levels of adversity and those behind the scenes in the dark you're going to have to battle through to get there. Is put these billion-dollar visions in my heart for things He's shown me that I'll be day in the future. And say, when I'm a billionaire, not if, I'm going to do so many more things and help so many more people. Worshiping money, it's understanding that it's a tool. But I don't sit there and not do anything and just say like, okay, when's this $1 billion going to come? I'll start helping people. No, just being the sheep. I started doing what I could with what I had right away. And that was even when I first started with my company for people with Dreamshine with developmental disabilities. When the recession of 2007, 2008 hit, I just got married. I had 2 kids back to back. My wife was working the overnight shift. My office was in a barn. We had nothing. And with what you have, and keep growing through that, help start to equip me to the next levels of my company. Now we flash forward almost 20 years later. We serve over 100 amazing individuals with developmental disabilities with 2 locations, one 5-acre location, Dreamshine Gardens, which we just finished another beautiful building there. The other one, Dreamshine Waterfront, which has the Waterfront Lodge, the pirate ship building, the log home, and this amazing pond that's fish. It's all adaptive for wheelchairs. And we have all these different amazing things. We have, I think, close to at least 30 team members, employees. Those are just that are on payroll, like full-time payroll. There's also part-time, subcontracted, like that would make it easily over 40. Office in a barn with nothing to then get here. And there was so many times in the dark, and there still is, where I had these battles behind the scenes. I mean, even the own person next to the governor of Ohio gave me threatening phone calls when I was 26 years old, trying to shut me down, saying I can't open Dreamshine. It continues, and there's always another level. And as I say, these $1 billion visions God has put in my heart, where Mark, the homes, the residential services are horrible for people with disabilities. So much better for them. They're still being abused. They still don't have good services. And I have these visions of building these smart home communities, not just in Ohio, where Dreamshine is, but also all throughout the United States, and then going globally to places like my wife's country, Sierra Leone, where they don't have any services really for people with developmental disabilities or any funding. These $1 billion visions that God put in my heart to make these reality. A long way to go to keep getting there. It's a process, just like with a show. I never wanted the show. I never wanted the spotlight. And then one day God put in my heart, he's like showing me this thing in my gut ongoing of like speaking on this, like not only just a huge stage, but like what is like an arena filled with like tens of thousands of people, like on stage, like doing a live show. It's always kind of blurry. I didn't know exactly what it was. I still don't. I've done some speaking events, not to that level, but oh God, like you've got the wrong guy. I'm the one that dropped speech class 3 times in college. I don't want to do this. And then if you're all like, is this calling me to do this next level of success, or is this just me? One way to decipher it is if it's this thing that's like in your gut, it's not usually like this perfectly audible voice or sign, but this kind of like feeling in your gut that just kind of keeps pulling at it and doesn't go away. And it's a scarier thing than that. Okay, that like this is God continually telling me this is what he wants me. And I'm at the end of the day, like, thy will be done. Because if I go wrong, I can never go wrong if I'm continually following the purpose that God puts in my heart. And there's different levels of your purposes. You've got to go through some of this experience. Had I not gone through a lot of the hard times of building Dream Shine, of sucking at leadership, of learning how to grow and develop my own leadership, which is a lifelong journey, and then learn and grow and develop other team members, other employees, also have to learn finances at different levels, finances, because God, okay, you're making this, then 100,000, and now you have $1 million company, then you've got to learn these different levels and go through it to be able to then manage like $1 billion. And a lot of the times when you just want this quick and fast and you think, why isn't this happening? And it feels like a curse. God's using this as a blessing to you so that when you get there and get it, you're not going to just lose it all and screw it all up. And even if you do, you've experience, which no one can ever take away from you, which puts you beyond people that just only have knowledge but don't have the experience. Because when you live with experience, the doing, the fighting, the grit behind the scenes, that's what leads to wisdom. And so then you to do everything that you've done to get to where you've gotten. So even if you did lose it all, you have to get it all back again. And then you'll come back stronger. And then you learn to build even better systems. But like a part of the process of what it continually takes. And as I'm even going back to this, and I'm thinking with the story, I mean, it goes, I could do multiple shows on this, even after he's king, the stuff that happens. It's crazy. But there's all these different levels of the purposes and these battles behind the scenes. And people, you're king now. I want to have the king. I want that. Oh, you've got this. You've crossed over this amount of subscribers. I want that. You've got this. You're with all these employees and you're serving people with disabilities. I want that. And they don't see of the blood, sweat, and the tears of what you continue to go through behind the scenes that no one sees. I have to bring up, this is just an I'm not an expert on things like the Book of Enoch. I could talk to my dude Wes about this. Actually, we're going to be doing up a follow-up show here as we talk about recapping. It was crazy a year ago with that whole Billy Carson thing that happened. Wes and I have never actually done a whole follow-up on that. We've talked a lot behind the scenes, but we haven't came together since all that. We wanted to share a year later recap of what's happened in his life, what's happened in my life, more of the whole story behind the story of what happened throughout that whole thing and where things are now, as well as so much more. But this will be a great question I'll ask him about the Book of Enoch. He's an expert in these areas, which isn't in the Bible, but from what I understand, it has a lot of like historicity. And it's because there's a part in there where these fallen angels, it's mind-blowing. It's so crazy that come basically as like, and then marry these women, and I don't know if they marry them or they start having sex with them, and they basically have these like half human, half demon babies, which are giant. And that made me think of Goliath. I don't know these babies that they're talking about, but Goliath is like slandering God constantly, definitely like is a giant. And I was just thinking like, oh man, the book of Enoch kind of talks about that and a lot of other crazy things, but it's just really interesting. So when he becomes king of Israel, age 37, 22 years later, after that whole prophecy or anointing was foretold upon him, he had been through so much craziness that no one else sees. I'm telling you to like scare you out of going after that dream or that purpose or that high level of success. No, absolutely go after it. This is how you build that like high performance mindset. It's these silent battles, the suffering that you continue to push through. And remember the vision that God puts in your heart that gets you to. But I'm going to be really real with you. I know there's times and there's days where even internally you're like, I can't do this anymore. I'm not good enough to do this anymore. And we get stuck in our own head. And I'm talking about myself and a lie. And what of things happen, like I said, even with this show today, I have so much that has been happening to where it took me like 2 weeks to do this. And even before when I got on here to do this, every voice in my head was like, Mark, you can't do this. Like maybe you should just like all together. And I've been doing this YouTube channel for over 10 years. People don't realize. And this is on the side. This is just another part of my purpose. Because God is like in my heart. And he's like, it's not about me. It's about the stories of others and yourself that I share through you when we have other people like Clarissa Shields, the heavyweight boxer that has shared like overcoming adversity, the battles she fought of going through being like molested as a child and growing up with so much adversity and how she's continued to overcome and become the female heavyweight champion, winning 2 Olympic gold medals. Williams of female boxing. It's 2 inserts. That's what, and it continues to keep this in my heart. Then in my gut, then I'm not gonna stop because I know it's bigger than me. And it gets hard. These billion-dollar dreams of the future of this smart home community. I know what it's like. I mean, we're at 30 plus employees, you know, then at the level of Dreamshine, the location will be at like 80 plus employees, serving like 400 individuals with developmental disabilities. And that's a whole other different leap in levels. And then what we're talking about with a smart home community and all that, that's going to be where we're having like tens of thousands of employees and team members. And I know what it takes to get to where I've gotten. And that's so much more work than you can even imagine. But what I've learned is the training that you learn along the way, that behind the scenes stuff is what continually equips you to keep going to each level. And continuing to focus on your why is what always keeps me going, whatever that why is for you. And I have different like levels and purposes of my why. There's one for our amazing individuals that we serve at Dreamshine, knowing that they didn't have any options after high school to have any places that weren't just like institutionalized and horrible and depressing. And we continue to create this beautiful like resort-like environment for them to have these amazing options. And every time I see them and the smiles that they have and just how happy they are continues to push me like this isn't about me. And when I have parent tears, like, thank you, like for what you've created, like my son, my daughter, they have somewhere to go where they have options and it's amazing and they're happy. And I know they're safe and they're not being abused like in these other places. And in leadership, continuing to grow into myself and then building up others on our team and our culture and having them share stories of how from what they've learned from being at Dream Shine, working with our amazing with disabilities, and then also things them sharing like what you have taught me with leadership has helped me to even be a better husband or a better wife or like a better mom to my kids. That was a part that I did was going to be part of like building and running a company, the whole other level of leadership. And that continues to be my why. And at the foundation of it, it's God. Like my why, God. And whatever Jesus continues in my heart, I'm going to keep going after. And it's not easy. I do go through doubt and external battles all the time, just like all of you. Just like David, just like that bamboo that grows for 5 years under the ground in the dark when no one sees it. It's so hard to keep going and doing this thing that you're doing when you're not seeing the results like in the real world. And you're looking at everyone else, you're doubting yourself, but deep down, believe that these roots are growing more powerful and stronger. And then after 5 years, after decades, whatever it may be, when all of a sudden that bamboo grows seed in such a short amount of time, people think that you're an overnight success. And they think, well, I want that. And you start comparing yourself to what other people have. And that's why they say comparison is the thief of joy, because you don't ever know the story behind the story and the adversities and the battles that they've had to fight behind the scenes and the suffering that we have to go through in the dark that no one else sees in order to get there. And when you go through that, that's okay. That doesn't mean that you're off track. That means that you're on track. You're being trained and equipped to go to that next level of your dream, of your purpose, of that mindset to be significantly successful. And this builds and strengthens everything you need to have that higher performance, stronger grit mentality mindset to keep going when all hell breaks loose. So I love you. I know it's been a minute since and why I continue to do this. Please like and comment, subscribe to my if you haven't, and please share this with anyone that you think needs to hear this. Like, that's what keeps going. That, like, it's because of that's how we're able to keep doing these shows. And thank you all, like, amazing support. And I know, like, it's easy to see stuff and we can just forget to like hit the like or hit subscribe or share it with someone. But that's how this helps get us through the whole YouTube algorithms, and it gets it out there to the right people. If you listen to it on Spotify, on iTunes, on Apple Podcasts, anywhere, just like leave a review, give us a good rating if you love it. This all helps us continue together because united we elevate. And I just want to leave with this, everyone. The silent battles, suffering that you're facing behind the scenes, whether it's externally with all these things going on in your life, with finances, the doom and gloom you hear, or internally feel you're all alone, or like, what's wrong with me? I can't do this. I'm not good enough. This is, I promise you, this is your roots growing stronger. That's going to prepare you for you to build up, blast radius to that next level of your purpose. And that vision will continue to become a reality. And there's always another level. So don't you dare settle for this life that God has blessed you with and the purpose that God continues to put in your heart, because you're responsible for being the best you. It's not about us. It's not about you. This life that we've been blessed with, that we're not entitled to, that God has given to us, is bigger than us, and it's about continually living out our purpose to be the best versions of ourselves, to live our lives out through the purpose that God puts in our heart. And we're responsible for being the best you and living out these purposes and going after significant success, whatever that means to you. So don't you freaking dare give up, never settle, and keep elevating beyond. Boom.